Hey, great Sunday, everyone. How are you? How are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to see you. And welcome back for another great episode of Bella's Hope for Healing. I am your girl, Audrey Bella Langston. Happy Black History Month. Happy birthday to everyone that's celebrating a birthday, as well as if you're celebrating an anniversary. Whatever the celebration is, happy celebration to you, right? Okay, so I always like to start off with a few housekeeping norms, as I call them, before we get started on this great subject. And what I really appreciate that you do is smash the like button, subscribe to my channel, and share my page with others, guys. I like to get this word out here. I realize that everyone cannot watch when it's live all the time. But guess what? We are recorded right here on Facebook as well as YouTube. So there's no excuse. If you miss it live, fine. You can always go back. The only thing that happens when you look at the recording is obviously if you want to ask questions, which I implore you to do, ask my guests questions. That's why I have them on the show, and I will try to get to them as expeditiously as possible. My guy, shout out to my producer, Jared Brown, is behind the scenes, so he throws that stuff up there for me. So give him some time to see it and read it, and then he'll toss it back to me. Even if you need to say it one more time, I promise you I will get to it. Also, comment. You may not have a question, but hey, give a sister some support. Say something uplifting and positive. It makes us all feel good. I just want to know you're there and not out in space somewhere, leaving me here all by myself. Okay. So yes. So guys, the show that I'm going to be bringing to you today is something really near and dear to my heart. And as you can see on my shirt, which I believe most of you can, it's okay. I'm probably going in the wrong direction. It's okay to ask for help. Okay. And what that is that I'm going to be talking about is surrounded around the fact that not enough people are asking for help. So, how is depression and anxiety impacting our society today? Do you ever really stop to think about that? Because I know I'm hearing about it more and more, so I know you guys are as well. This is what we're going to be discussing. Now, I just want to share a little bit about it before I bring my guest out. Depression, which I will admit I sometimes deal with. There's different types. Mine is a low grade. Sometimes it's triggered by if I'm putting too much stress on myself. Again, I am, praise the Lord, about to be a 17-year kidney transplant recipient. As of the 17th, as of the 4th of March, I will be 17 years post-transplant. And then the day after, on the 6th, it will be my 60th birthday. Praise the Lord. So he was double good to me. And I don't take that for granted at all. I'm sure you all know that about me, though. But yeah, our medications can cause these things. But what we don't want to do is hold that in if you're in a bad place with it. And so that's what we're going to talk about. But globally, it is estimated that approximately 230 million adults suffer from depression. 230 million, guys. That's a lot of people. And who's at the forefront? Women. Women. We're going to talk about why the possibilities of that might be as well, although I already know a few. But women are much more afflicted by depression than men. And it's not medically known why depression and anxiety and why it's so aggressive as it is with regard to how it works in the brain. They still have not, unfortunately, figured that out. But they are both similar, depression and anxiety. But there's a different feeling with each one of them. They have similar patterns, though. So the most common is major depressive disorder, or as it's called, MDD, or generalized anxiety disorder, which is called GAD, short-term GAD, GAD. And for our youths, our babies, this is getting out of hand. from the ages of, I believe it's 10 to 24 years of age. Suicide, which we really going to talk about, suicide is their leading cause of death. Now, what do I believe are some possibilities of that? They're being bullied, there's the gaslighting, they're being body shamed, and quiet as is kept, many kids are bullied that are bullied are some of the smartest kids out there, and that makes them feel different, that makes them feel like outcasts. That's how the kids want to make them feel, that are not as astute as they are. So many aspects of this, so many, that we are going to delve into within the next hour, but we're going to touch on it. There's so many that we can't touch on, but I'm going to try to get us to the most important ones. So let me get started by telling you a little bit about my guest tonight. She is the mother of five children. That's so awesome. And she has several grandchildren. She attended York College and she received her bachelor's degree in psychology. She then went on to receive her master's degree in social work from Fordham University. And she is a palliative care social worker. She's a licensed clinician. She is a consultant, and she is a life coach. See, that's why some of us women be getting depressed, because we wear all the hats, right? But what she basically does is provides mental health services for those who struggle with challenging emotions and negative behavioral patterns, i.e., depression, anxiety, and her ultimate goal is to be able to help them with coping strategies. A lot of times you go to the doctor for these issues, and the first thing they want to do is throw you on the drugs. And I say, unless it's really out of hand to the point of harming yourself or someone else, try coping strategies. So we're going to talk about that. But what's also really cool is that she is the founder of several of her own organizations, one of which is called Turnage Counseling and Consulting, as well as the Lewis Danvers Leukemia Fund. Also note at the bottom, Jared will start running a ticky tape with the number for suicide contact. If anyone is thinking about that, I urge everyone to make a note of that number and just stick it on your fridge, because you never know if you yourself, God forbid, hopefully you'll never need it, you may be able to bless someone else with it. Okay, so let's give a warm welcome to my guest for the evening, Sharon Turnage. Bring her on out, Jared.
Yay!
Hi, hey, Sharon.
Hey.
How are you? Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so blessed to be here. And I truly hope that this show will help somebody, anybody. It would definitely put them on a path to mental health and wellness, because our goal always is achieving optimal mental health.
That's right. Amen to that, girl. And that's why I've got you here. I'm going to just holler at a few people. Hey, Monica James Smith, thank you for joining. What's up, my guy? Phil from A Second Chance. I see you. I see you. I see a couple of people. Jennifer, hey there, girl. Thank you guys so much for joining. So yeah, Sharon, this is, first of all, one of the, I've been really, it's been really on my spirit and my heart to do a show about this for quite some time. And I actually even tried to reach out to a couple of people who definitely deal with this. But I do understand that everybody is not ready to be on a platform like this, and that's what that type of when it is like a sickness can do to you. It draws you inward. and not, outward for the help that people
Mm-hmm.
need. But also, with this being the last day of Black History Month, I was like, and after what I heard, hey, Lisa G, hey, Jim, Uncle Jim, after what I heard about, my God, Chelsea Christ, when that happened, I felt like I knew her. That girl was
Yes.
amazing,
Yes.
amazing. Guys, if you don't know, she was Miss USA 2019.
Mm-hmm.
She took her life. She lived in downtown New York and jumped out. She lived in a 60-story building. I'm not sure what floor. It doesn't
Yes.
even matter. But oh my God! And I even said in one of my posted intros, you never know what someone is dealing with, and people have the misconception that because a person looks like they have it all together, and especially a person like her, a celebrity, you're
Yes.
beautiful, you're an attorney, you're not just beauty, you're smart. But my God, she had to be
Mm-hmm.
hurting, 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 obviously to the point of no return. And it hurts people
Yes.
like that so bad that they don't even realize when they do that, the scars they're leaving behind.
Yes.
So yeah, this is why I wanted you on here. Hey, Tay. um Also, I just got, this is a sidebar. Girl,
Mm-hmm.
I saw where you graduated and got your master's from, where my husband from my former life went, Denzel Washington, Fordham University. Wait,
Yes. Yes.
wait,
Yes.
did you get blessed to see him walking down the halls? That was probably before your
Um.
time. That was before your
Yes.
time there. Yeah.
Definitely
When,
before. Definitely before my time, but so many amazing people went to
that's
that
true.
school.
That's true.
Um, so many impactful people, myself is being one of them. And I'm proud to be at that school. I was proud to go there because, the concentration was on making amazing social workers that were truly going to
Mm-hmm.
go out into the world and impact
Wow.
all
Yeah.
people, all
Right.
races of people, all
Right.
backgrounds,
Right.
especially those less fortunate. The goal was, it's not enough to just help people. We have to seek out those people that need the help.
Exactly.
And to what you were saying earlier, like you were saying that you were reaching out to people to try to get people to be on a show. A lot of clinicians are really busy at this time. They're they have so many clients. They're waitlisting clients, which is one thing that I want to stress and express to people, because if you're looking for mental health services right now, a lot of clinicians have wait lists because there's so
Mm.
many people seeking out help. But
Yeah.
one thing that's important to me is, I feel like it's so important to let people know that mental health issues, mental health illness is real. 1 in 4 people in this country is dealing with mental illness.
Mhm.
1 in 4. And there's somebody out there that's that one. Um, Another thing that was important to me, and I'm trying to stress, is that is cultural competence. So, with me being a clinician of color, with me being somebody that comes from an ethnic background and that comes from a neighborhood where, it's majority Black, and that I can kind of share in the experience of the individuals that I treat, that was more important to me. They need to see that people like themselves are at this level of, of as being clinicians, and that we are available and we can provide a cultural perspective in our treatment. And
Right.
so that's why I'm really, really just getting out there and letting people see that it's people like me.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
from
Mhm.
Jamaica, Queens, and I'm proud to say that I come from a community that, a lot of individuals in my community, they need treatment. They
Mhm.
have been, as you know, New York, we've been dealing with a pandemic. We were one of
Yeah.
the first places that really experienced the pandemic firsthand, from losing individuals to having not to, be at our jobs, and loss of income and everything. And what people don't realize, that just the pandemic alone, the loss of life was one situation, which is trauma and grief in itself. But the loss of a job, the loss of just the freedom with being isolated, not being able to get out and be around family and friends, those losses are traumatic. So if we're not dealing with it from a trauma aspect, there are people out there telling us that we need the help, but are we truly understanding that we need to deal with the grief and the loss
Mhm.
and the trauma aspect? And so I've been trying to just be very vocal so people, I can be an asset.
Awesome. Yeah, and you kind of touched a little bit already on part of my intro question for you,
Mhm.
which is rather to please share with us, because your story is rather unique, and how you found purpose in counseling and
Yes.
philanthropy.
Yes. So I'm happy because I would love to share my story. First of all, my story, my life story is about turning pain into purpose. So
Hmm.
to give you a little background about me, I was actually going to school to become a doctor. That was my original goal. And I was in at your college, in the pre-med program, a biology student. And at the time, I had experienced a loss. I had lost a set of quadruplets, all natural,
Wow.
two sets of identical twins. And when I had that original loss, I had individuals that had approached me and were basically saying that, you should be happy that you had the loss, no big deal. It was four babies. You couldn't maybe have afforded
Oh my
to take care of them. And so when I initially experienced that loss, I did not grieve, right? I felt that
God.
I wasn't entitled to grieve it. So fast forward to the year 2000, I'm still in school during my program, and I lost another pregnancy, which was a little girl. And so that pregnancy, I think, kind of just catapulted for me. I always say that the day she died was my birthday. That was my day that I realized that the old me was no more, and that I was going to be, it was a new normal.
Hmm.
So it took me 2 years to grieve. Um, a social worker helped me get past and deal with it. And so when I came full circle and was finally dealing with my pain, I found my purpose. I knew that then I was going to become a social worker, and I knew that I was going to help other mothers deal the same way I was able to.
Hmm.
And thus,
Wow.
I started the Tyler Nicole Foundation, which helps moms that lose their infants in birth. So we deal with perinatal loss, we deal with maternal loss when moms die at birth, and we also deal with children that have life-threatening illnesses. To bring it full circle, in 2009, my son was diagnosed with leukemia. So once again, I was dealing with the pain, but I was able to immediately turn it into purpose, starting the Lewis Danvers Leukemia Fund, where I educate people on blood cancer awareness and dealing with getting a transplant, a bone marrow transplant. So register individuals for the bone marrow registry. I've registered thousands of people to the registry, and I've also found people matches.
Hmm.
So I'm here to say that we can deal with the things we deal with. It
Hmm.
doesn't
Hmm.
matter what it is, but there is the light at the end of the tunnel, and we can turn our pain into purpose, and we can
Right.
help other people at the same
Hmm.
time.
Amen. Amen. So, okay, let's get into talking
Yes.
about this pain that many that no, thank you for sharing that. And girl, you've I see you've got a squad behind you, backing you up, which is good. Aja, I think,
uh
has been really, and Naya
yeah,
or Nia, forgive me if I'm
yeah,
mispronouncing your name.
yay.
Um, so they're all on there supporting you. Yeah, turning pain
Mhm.
into purpose. I love it. So
Yes.
yeah, so let's start out with let's see, let's begin with you telling us, the medical difference between depression and anxiety, and how your approach, let's say with a first time client, I don't know if you call them client or patient, what is the
Exactly.
protocol or the strategy, if you will, that you utilize? And also, I want you to talk about the symptoms, of course. If that's a
Yes.
little too power packed, I can go back
Oh, no,
over it
no,
again.
no.
Hmm.
That's perfect. So, first of all, I want to say to everybody out there, it is okay to not be okay. I love your t-shirt because I tell people all the time, it's okay to not
Okay.
be okay. So,
Yes.
just to start out, normally when I'm working with my clients on a scale to 1 to 10, I ask them, how are you? So, how are you meaning, how have you been this week? Have you been dealing with anxiety and depression? And I'm going to break down the symptoms, but how are you? So, on a scale of 1 to 10, a 1 to 4 is acceptable to deal with symptoms because remember, some anxiety and depression is normal. Like if
Hmm.
we're starting a new job, you're gonna feel anxious. If
Anxious.
you lose someone in your life, you're gonna have low mood. The thing is, when you see that those symptoms are at like a 6, 7, 8, all the way up to 10, that's
Hmm.
when you have to really look and say to yourself, is this just something that will pass, or is this something that I really need to dive into further? So I want to go into and the symptoms between anxiety and depression.
Hmm.
So we're going to start with anxiety first. So if you're dealing with excessive feelings of fear and worry, if you're dealing with and worry is the big thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Anxiety is worrying, um, your heart racing, your
Hmm.
mind kind of like having a lot of different negative thoughts,
Hmm.
panic attacks, irregular heartbeat. You can even have nausea, dry mouth, and even, muscle issues.
Hmm.
So if you're feeling that, that's anxiety. Now, when we
Hmm.
get to depression, um chronic feelings, so sadness, emptiness, um little to no motivation to do things, sleeping
Hopelessness, I would
issues.
think. Hmm.
Yes, hopelessness,
Hmm.
sleeping issues. If you're sleeping too much or if you're not
Or too
sleeping
little.
enough.
Yeah.
Also, appetite changes. You may not want to eat at all, or you may be eating too much. Also, isolation. A lot of
Hmm.
people that are depressed, isolated, they cut
Yeah.
themselves off from people. All of those things. And like you said, the hopelessness. And then one step further, suicidal thoughts
Hmm.
or attempts can also impact somebody that's depressed. Another
Hmm.
thing is you have individuals that may have adjustment disorder with depressed mode and anxiety. So they may experience both. They may experience a week where they're just down and depressed. Then they may, the next week, have the panic attacks and the anxiousness. So you have to pay attention to your symptoms. That's the main thing.
Hmm.
And what
Hmm.
I say is, like I said, um, um what does it look like for you? So if I'm dealing with this amount of symptoms, how many times a day are you experiencing them symptoms? How many days of the week? How intense? Remember, scale 1 to 10. You were talking about earlier with Miss USA, and
Hmm.
kind of want to take it to there because I want to kind of go over the suicidal aspect of this.
Definitely. Yeah, I was
So,
going to get to that. Yep. But go ahead. Go
oh,
ahead.
okay.
That's okay. No,
So,
that's okay.
when we're talking suicidal, people can be depressed, they can be anxious, and that's one thing. But now, when you realize that the symptoms are to a point where you're severely sad and now you're starting to have the negative thoughts and you're starting to think, um should I be here, I don't want to be here, and what that looks like,
Worthlessness. Yeah. Hmm.
worthlessness,
Yeah.
you have to say to yourself, um And this is for the person that's feeling that, because I want to do two parts. We want to talk about who's feeling it, and then I want to bring it to who's seeing and witnessing it, this in their family member or friend.
Okay.
If you're feeling this, right, you
Mm-hmm.
need to seek out help. Um, you may not want to wait for therapy because we stated before there's wait lists with a lot of therapists. So the first thing I would suggest is either calling the suicide hotline, and I know that that's going to be running
Yeah.
up there. So you definitely want to reach out to the suicide hotline. You
Mm-hmm.
also want to reach out to the National Disaster Distress Helpline,
Mm-hmm.
and that number is 800-985-5990. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is another resource. The number is 800-273-8255. The national and in New York City, because I'm sorry, that's this, where I'm from. We have what's called New York City Well, and they're another resource that you can reach out to. And all of these different resources, a counselor would get on the phone with you immediately and work you through your symptoms and what you're dealing with at that present moment. And
Mm-hmm.
then from there, they will connect you with more long time resources or
Mm-hmm.
ongoing resources, like a therapist like myself.
So there's so
So,
many resources,
mhm,
so many that you've just said, even aside from what we had running on the screen, which I knew that too. I saw so many, that there is no excuse not to seek help, because and
yeah,
it's confidential. I think it's important to say
yes,
that as well. And some people don't always want to talk to somebody. However, that's
exactly,
why I had Jared put the texting line on there. They're the people that will text you. They're willing to
yes,
text you back and forth too. I just wanted to
yes.
throw that out there.
No, thank you. I appreciate it, because I know that we don't always want to share what is going on with other people. So, for instance, I would prefer for somebody to come to me, a licensed clinician. I'm actually a licensed therapist, and I'm also a licensed addiction counselor. But if you don't want to seek um the help from somebody like myself, then find a trusted family member that you feel you can trust, that you feel you can communicate with, that you can share with, and that will keep it, between each other, and you can kind of express it, or even a friend, or even somebody, a support group, like find a local support group or whatever that you can attach to. The main thing is, if you're feeling suicidal, and let me just kind of explain it. There's one
Mm-hmm.
thing to feel like, I don't want to be here anymore. There's another thing to say, I don't want to be here anymore, and I'm going to get the pills and I'm going to take them. So once you identify that you have a plan, is when you really, really need to seek help. And this is important to anybody that is witnessing somebody in that space. It's one thing to just know that a person is feeling down, and but once they start having a plan, or they start showing you that they're kind of thinking past the just regular, like, I
Right.
kind of don't want to be here, but that's when you really have to seek immediate help.
Mm-hmm. Can I jump in for 1 second? That's
Yes.
yeah, because that's you. That was so good. You're so right. I just want to hone in for a minute on that part where you just mentioned the variations of suicide, so to speak.
Yes.
As an officer, a former Chicago police officer, I saw a lot of this. I saw it of course, on the job and off the job, so to speak. I saw so many of my fellow officers commit suicide. I lost count during my
Mm,
almost 22 years of service. I can't
mm,
tell you how devastating it was. Some of them
mm,
I knew of, some of them I knew well, had partnered
mhm,
up in the car with them.
mhm,
Um, that is a feeling like you can't imagine, and never saw the hurt coming. I saw it with
Yes.
one of them, but the other ones,
Mhm,
I didn't see it. Okay, now when you spoke about
mhm,
consuming pills, let's just use this. A person who wants to commit side, who wants to commit side with the use of pills, that's a good one to use,
mhm,
versus that person who wants to commit suicide with a gun or taking
mhm,
a dive out of a building that high. I came to
mhm,
realize there's a difference to me, and I'm going to tell you what it
mhm,
is. And this is just my opinion.
mhm.
Pills, to me, that's more of a cry for help if you survive
Okay.
it. You know,
Mhm,
to me, when you really want to take your life, 9 out of 10, like unfortunately Chelsea did, like unfortunately
mhm.
somebody taking a gun, where survival is pretty much nil to
Okay.
possible.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Pills, their stomach can be pumped, and that's where I've always struggled. And it made me feel that that person is really crying out when they're threatening to
Mhm,
do it. That's a cry for help. We just got to
mhm.
realize and recognize them. And even, even making an attempt with pills, you can. All I'm saying is, you can still survive.
Mhm.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes, and I love that you said that. And I want to just recite what my sister said. I have a sister who's a nurse, and she said to me a long time ago, you may not think there's signs, but there's always signs.
Uh huh.
So, like you said, in the case of somebody verbally telling you, I think I want to do it, right? And then like I think I'm gonna go and get some pills or do it, whatever. You're a lot more prepared to get them the help, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, in the case of Miss USA, she didn't quote unquote tell somebody this is what I'm dealing with. But there
Right.
were signs there. Now, I just want to point out to you, for instance, I saw a video she did where she was talking about why she wasn't a lawyer anymore. And basically,
Mm-hmm.
she was saying that doing the job, she experienced a lot of microaggressions on the job. Now, most people don't go to college and then become an attorney because there's so many years of schooling and everything that you have to do to then not to stop working. So even though it doesn't really seem like a sign, it's a sign. How bad were those microaggressions affecting her to where she left her career?
Yeah.
Another thing, she had did a video one time and she was talking about how she didn't know what to do with her hair. So she wore her hair in like a mohawk style until it grew out.
Mm.
So nobody really repeats the same hairstyle every day, especially a mohawk where you clip pins in and everything. So what that was kind of saying to me was that maybe she was dealing with some identity issues.
Mhm,
I knew
mhm.
she was biracial, so maybe that was an aspect. So what I'm
Correct.
saying is not that I can say that 100% told me something was wrong,
Sure.
but
Mhm.
that let me know something's there.
Right.
Another thing
Uh,
I another thing I wanted to point out, and I'm sorry I didn't mean to interrupt you,
No, you're fine. Go
was
ahead.
that we don't ask each other enough
Come on.
how we're doing.
Mm. Come
So
on. And
whenever
let
I
me
meet
throw
with
something in there, especially Sharon, when that person is for the most part a strong person. You think,
exactly.
yeah, go ahead.
Mhm. Oh no, definitely. Because everybody, a lot of times, they say to me, because I've been through all these things, like, "Oh, she's good." No, I'm
Hmm.
not good.
Yes,
I'm not
come on,
good.
girl. Oh
I'm
my
not
God.
good.
Yes, yes.
I may be more resilient. All right. And
Right.
which I'm gonna go into later because I'm gonna discuss coping strategies and resilience and
I
everything.
got the
I
questions
may
right here.
be
I'm just letting you finish. Uh-huh.
I may be more resilient than others. So I may be able to handle the adversities in my life without becoming suicidal than other people. So the thing is, whenever I meet with my clients, the first thing that I say to them every single session is, how are you? And I'm actually going to launch a nationwide campaign next month it's called How Are You Feeling? So it's a How Are You Feeling campaign. When do we actually ask somebody how are they? And I mean genuinely, not from a place where we just greet people. I'm
Right.
saying from a place to where we really want to know, are you okay? Because
Yes.
that's what it represents for me.
Exactly. And I said that to an aunt last week. I was having a conversation and with her. We talk every week. And she's like in her 70s. And I said, you know, it's we and of course we talk about scriptures and God a lot. And I said, well, you know, because we're again, I was telling her I want to do a show on this anxiety and depression. And I said, you know, it's just so many struggles with that, and people have a propensity to think that when you have a stronger constitution about yourself, like you said, oh, she good, that girl's she's a diehard. Now all that may be true to a certain extent, but hey, I am not unbreakable. I hurt like everyone else hurts.
Also,
You know what I mean? Especially when you're dealing with a transplanted organ. See, people don't understand the things that come
exactly.
along with that. They think, oh, because I'm bouncing all over the place. Yeah, but you're on
Exactly.
medications, and those
Mm-hmm.
medications can cause you
Mm-hmm.
things periodically. Your body wears down.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a cure necessarily. It's just a new way of life, and thank God for it. But we are still
Exactly.
special. Now, the only other thing I want to add
Exactly.
before I have you go on is what you
Yeah.
said about no, because this is important, and again, this is my next question, because it's going to be after I make this point, it's going to be, why do you think women suffer more from depression than men, and what are some of those possible contributing factors? So hold on to
Okay.
that. I'm going back
Yes.
to what you said about Chesley, in the legal
Mm-hmm.
law thing and the education. My
Mm-hmm.
daughter is finishing up on her last slope of law school.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter is about to be 30. Chelsea was 30.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Um, Very difficult getting through law school. She has
Mm-hmm.
really persevered, but let me tell you, and we don't live in the same state. So when I went to visit her, my intent was only to be there for a week, about
Yes.
7, 8 days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she was dealing with so much, and I wanted to do everything as a
Mm-hmm.
mom. That's how we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I did the cooking and the laundry, because I wanted her to
Mm-hmm.
be totally engrossed in her studies, because I know the stress
Yes.
she deals with. She shares it with me.
Mm-hmm.
And when that time came and was about to leave, she was like, Mom, can you got anything going on? I said, what do you
Yeah.
mean? When you go back home? I said, not really. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I was just gonna get back to my regular stuff, that I do, because I live here alone. You know what I mean? My family is not surrounding me. So she said,
Mm-hmm.
do you think you could stay another week? Would you
Yep.
mind? So
Mm-hmm.
I went on and said, okay, because we hadn't seen each
Mm-hmm.
other in about 4 months. Okay, guess what?
Mm-hmm.
That week turned into another week. She asked,
Mm-hmm.
Mom, do you just now? I knew that was
Mm-hmm.
my child crying out to me for help. She needed me to
Mm-hmm.
be there with her.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, I was in that position. And with
Mm-hmm.
her going into a career, Sharon,
Yes.
she's doing her last internship. I know I was in the
Mm-hmm.
law field. It ain't no joke.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but especially for females, and especially for an African American female. Okay.
Yes.
Now, um,
Mm-hmm.
she is specializing in sex trafficking. That's her passion. And
Mm.
child molestation, child abuse. Now, I was like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God. And I pray every day, because of the things she's seeing already, that she's gonna see,
Exactly.
that will cause
Mm-hmm.
so much stress. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, go ahead. I just really wanted to share that.
Oh, well, first of all, I would love to say that, because to answer that, because first of all, do we even not realize that there's only 5% of doctors that are African American? There
Yeah.
are only 5% of lawyers that are African American.
Yeah.
There's a small percentage of clinicians like myself that are
Mm-hmm.
African American. And then to break it down into men and into women, it's, we have to understand that we're going into these fields like Chelsea
Mm-hmm.
was, like your daughter, with
Mm-hmm.
dealing with all the microaggressions and
Yeah.
everything else, because for one, they don't want us there. For two, they don't feel we deserve to be there. For three, it's all these different things. And
Yeah.
even when I was in school, and I love Fordham to death, but there was moments that when I was there that people felt like your GPA can't be that high, or how did you get here? Thinking maybe I didn't deserve to be in the
Yeah.
building. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then once we graduate, so then we go out into the fields. And then now we're amongst our colleagues that are now then looking at us, because we may be one or two of the only faces of color, or of, and I'm not, and I'm just speaking on my experience, and of color that's in the building. So then
Mm-hmm.
these
Mm-hmm.
are the things we're dealing with. The system is definitely hard to be a lawyer anyway, no matter what race, and then even harder to be it as a person of color. And so, like I said, in Chelsea's case, when she left her career and she said she didn't like the microaggressions. And then when I saw the video that she did, she was smiling in the video. Well, normally when you speak about something, right, that is hurtful to you, you won't be smiling. So that shows the pain was behind the beauty. The pain was behind the
Mm-hmm.
smiles.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
we have to learn how to differentiate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Between somebody that is smiling because they're happy, and somebody that's smiling because they're fronting.
Because they're fronting. Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
something more is there. And that's why, how are you? We do assessments all the time as a clinician. Even as in all the fields, you're gonna assess, especially when you're in a field where you're dealing with helping people and working with people. So, how are you? What does that look like? When are we going to start asking our family members, asking our
Mm-hmm.
friends? Can we not take it for granted that people are okay? It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay for us to identify
Yes.
that in the people around
Yes.
us. It's
Mm-hmm.
also okay for us to tell people we're not okay. But
Mm-hmm.
it's probably going to be easier for you to pull it out of somebody than for somebody to feel the comfortability to be able to bring it out. Because a lot
Right.
of time when we speak about, how many times do we shame people? How many times do we see schizophrenic people walking in the street talking to themselves, and we're like, look at that person. You
Mm-hmm.
understand?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
person is living with a mental illness, and
Right.
we shame them so many
Yeah,
times.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. But also, I feel that one of the reasons that, and this was going to be a part two question because you still got to answer that last one that
Yes.
I asked. So I'll re ask it.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so that I'll get to the point I was just going to make.
Yes.
But I do want you to touch on why you, in your professional opinion, or just an opinion,
Mhm.
that you feel that women, I have my opinion, that women
Yes.
suffer more from depression than men, and what are
Yes.
some of those possible contributing factors?
Well, I want to go into intersectionality. So, and I'll explain it. So, when it comes to intersectionality, and this is what I was taught early on in my master's program, intersectionality kind of puts us in perspective of um the position we share, or what position we are in society. So for instance, at the top of the positionality chart would go a white male, right? So
Mm-hmm.
white male is at the top. Behind white male doesn't even come white female, actually comes white homosexual male, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then it would go to white female, right? Then it would go to a white female, that's a lesbian. And then it would go to Hispanic, I mean not Hispanic, well, like I said, Hispanic or black male, you get it? female is at the bottom of the chart, which is what I'm trying to tell you. So for one, we're not even valued. All
Mhm.
right. And as a Black female, we are totally at the bottom. So a lot of times we're not even considered, let alone considering our feelings and what we're going through. And then I also feel that, because that's just my opinion, and I also feel that um, we're looked upon as we can manage.
Mhm.
So, as
Mhm.
the Black
Mhm.
female, we're raising the
Mhm.
households, we're raising the kids. A lot of time, we're grandmothers raising our grandkids. A lot of
Yes.
times, we're supporting the Black males. A lot of time, we're trying to build up our communities, and everybody feels we are just together. But
Right.
then I want to honestly say that we need to be supported. A lot of what we do comes from the resilience because we have been marginalized, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, and so we've had to become resilient, right? And we've had to manage ourselves with a society on a micro, meso, and macro level that does not care to to care for us, that we're just fighting against all of this. So a lot of times it's they can manage.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
can't
Mhm.
manage. We can't just manage. We need the
Mhm.
support, the resources. We need on a micro level. We need it within a systems level within our
Mhm.
families. We need on a community level, a meso level. We need
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I just feel that, first of all, as just people of color, period, we're marginalized. But then as females, it's just even lower. I just feel
Yeah.
we don't have the support out there for us. And a lot of people don't support us. So
Yes,
that's what I'm
I definitely agree. And I think I would add to that by saying, we are women who, especially, African American, we've always worn so many hats. It's from our lineage. You
yes,
take care of the children and you take care of your man, no matter
yes.
what, your husband. You
Hmm.
do whatever you have to do to keep the
Hmm.
family together, but it's never about you and
Yes.
nurturing you and
Hmm.
taking care of you. And so this just carries on from generation to
Hmm.
generation.
Hmm.
And then there you are, feeling by the time the kids go to college or whatever they do with their lives, you're there and you're feeling totally empty, like you have nothing left oftentimes to give. And again, this is not everybody. I'm just saying
Yeah.
a great deal of women. And so because of these things too,
Hmm.
and the pressures of work, and see, we're not stay-at-home wives. We work.
Hmm.
In fact,
Yes.
we in higher careers than men.
Hmm.
Okay, we doing the
Hmm.
corporate thing, running companies and
Hmm.
Fortune 500s, and we out here
Hmm.
doing this, in all of
Yes.
these various fields. But
Hmm.
yet, along, like you said, there comes so many other avenues that
Hmm.
just will drive us down. Hey,
Hmm.
Jared, could you put up something that Jonathan said? Because I like what he said. It's a lot of great comments coming through. Your baby's on here,
Yes.
Sharon. She said hi.
Uh,
Yeah.
and just real quick while he's putting that up, women
Uh-huh.
period have the issues. Women
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
It's women
Exactly.
period. We're not
Right.
even we're definitely as far as with economics, as far as work, as far as schools, as far as everything, women, are experiencing that. But then, like I said, people of color
Hey,
even
Lisa.
more because we can be marginalized.
Hey, Lisa Baxter, boo. She's saying hi to us.
Hi,
Hey, did you
Lisa.
find that post from Jonathan, Jared? Jonathan was, I believe he was saying something to
Saying about
the content about, men, he believes that they don't share when they're going through depression because, in other words, like it's a man thing. Now, I was going to touch on that even before he put that up. I agree. And I think men have issues with admitting that they're depressed or dealing with anxiety.
Mhm.
True. And you know why that is? Because of the good old way men are raised. Boys don't
Mhm.
cry. You suck it
Mhm.
up. Your
Mhm.
dad would like totally knock you out if you came, crying like a girl,
Mhm.
and society as a whole has put a wrongful face on depression and anxiety, and which actually oftentimes is bipolar disorder, something you can't even help. But it's because that makes the person view it as a weakness, especially a man. So Jonathan, you're very right about that. That came too fast.
Yes.
I didn't see that, Jared, if you want to
Yeah,
throw it back up there.
and I want to add to that. So when it comes to men, we're told be a man, right?
Be a
We
brave, be
hear that all
a
the
man,
time.
suck it
Be a
up.
man.
Hmm.
So be a man. If you have something going on, be a man about it. You can
Right.
handle it.
Handle your business.
It's
Hmm.
no emotions there. Be tough. Even as people, we're raising our boys to be tough. Like get out there.
Hmm.
You get out there and you put yourself out there. If it's a game, you could do that sport. Get tough. Get tough.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
don't we don't want them to show vulnerability, right? We
Hmm.
don't
Hmm.
want them to
Hmm.
show weakness. We connect weakness to them not being men, right?
Yeah.
And then
Right.
let them have a tear, like let them
Hmm. Hmm.
cry. Then that's the
Hmm.
next thing where see, and he's a punk. He's we
Right.
have to
Right.
stop we have to
Right.
stop making it seem like that we have to be okay. We have to be tough. We can't show emotions. And
Hmm.
our parenting has to reflect that too. We can't parent because remember, we're all born and then we
Hmm.
learn the knowledge, right? We're all born and we
Right.
learn the knowledge, right? So we're raising them to feel that they can't be weak, they can't be
Exactly.
vulnerable.
Hmm.
And we're not even asking them, are they okay? See, that's my biggest issue. We're not even
Hmm.
asking or finding out or assessing if people are okay. We don't even want to ask that. We could see our kid like get into a fight, and what we'll do. Oh, I choke it up. You be a man, choke it up. You good? You good? No, that
Yeah.
person is not good. Is it? Are you traumatized? Are you okay? How are you feeling? What
Hmm.
was that for you? Why? First of all, and it starts with communication. We're not communicating, and when we do communicate, a lot of times we're communicating and sending the wrong information. And until we change how we're doing things, right?
Hmm.
Until we change that, our young men especially are not going to be able to come out and verbalize
Yeah.
how they're feeling. They're
Well,
not
and
going to
it's.
get the
Hmm.
help, and
Hmm.
it's only gonna go from young boys, then young teens, to young men that don't have it together. And then once
Yeah.
they're men, we want to say, well, you should have had it together, but we didn't set that foundation for them.
Yeah. And as parents, it is our duty to, especially from the time of birth through those adolescent years, it is our responsibility as parents to teach them, and by example, also verbally, and guide their
Hmm.
decisions.
Hmm.
Now there are
Hmm.
children now who are growing up with incorrect ideas about who they are.
Yes.
Okay. And if you're an adult, that's one thing. Okay. You're an adult. You have a choice to make your decisions.
Hmm.
However, if you are my young child, You in my house eating my food, wearing the clothes that I buy you.
Mhm.
We need to, we're going to talk about what you're dealing with. If you're having an
Mhm.
identity crisis, we're going to at
Mhm.
least talk about that. We're going to get some
Mhm.
professional help about that. And so
Mhm.
now this is where I really wanted to segue into talking about children and
Mhm.
who deal with these
Mhm.
type of things. Kids, because they
Mhm.
have their fears, they have their
Yes.
worries, they've got peer
Mhm.
pressure, and these things are
Mhm.
typical for children. It's typical
Mhm.
for them to be confused about certain things, especially because
Yes.
there's so much peer pressure. But
Mhm.
what would you say,
Mhm.
to that type of child guidance? And also, when you deal with children, I'm not sure how often you do, but
Yes.
what if you do? Okay, so what are some of the some of the signs that parents should watch for, and really, really to the point of being concerned and seek help for their children, and how you go about handling
Yes.
that? Because children, you can't handle kids like you handle
Yeah,
adults,
you can handle
you know.
adults. So, I do more work with adults, but because I'm a therapist, I have worked with children. So I must
Hmm.
say this: children are definitely will not a lot of times communicate right how they're feeling
Hmm.
because for one they're not in protective spaces. So what
Hmm.
I'm trying to say is a child may feel, I want to express how I'm feeling to my parents. I want to express how
Hmm.
I'm feeling to my loved ones, but don't always feel that the spaces are not conducive to that because
Hmm.
a lot of times in our family systems, we don't have that open communication and dialogue, the needed dialogue, so that they feel like I can express myself. Sometimes when children are trying to express themselves, they're made to like be pushed aside and their feelings are not validated. So a lot of times children are just and teens are dealing with what they're dealing with, and what they're doing is because they want to release it. So a lot of times what do? They go to individuals that will listen. Not everybody that will listen is the proper person for them to listen to. So
Right.
that's why we have individuals in our communities that they can't talk to their parents. They're trying to talk to their family. The adults, the teachers are not listening. So now they're talking to the individuals that are displaying maladaptive behavior, right? Because
Hmm.
those
Hmm.
individuals are listening, but those are not the spaces that they need to be in. So what
Hmm.
happens is they don't deal with what they're dealing with, right? So now they get into a space where they're just displaying maladaptive behavior. And then people wonder why these kids can be out here being violent, these kids can
Hmm.
be out here disrespecting adults and don't have the
Hmm.
respect for authority, how they're even out here because one of the main things we're dealing with right now across this country is gun violence amongst young people. I
Yep.
recently had a 16-year-old nephew that was murdered in New York at the end of last year. And I know that you'll probably say, well, people are saying the violence is there, these kids they're out of control. No, the kids are now in spaces where they're getting
Hmm.
the attention paid to them. But
Hmm.
now those spaces are doing all of this behavior. So if we want to reach the kids as individuals, as communities, as groups, we need to start reaching out to them. How
Hmm.
are you?
Hmm.
What does that
Hmm.
look like?
Hmm.
Start talking to them, start guiding them, start mentoring
Hmm.
them. And what annoys me is there's enough of us that can do that. But what happens
Hmm.
is we get our degrees and we get our jobs and we start
Hmm.
being
Hmm.
professionals. And we're like, well, that's not exactly my kid and that's not my
Yep.
problem, right?
Right.
But
Right.
we're the ones, in my opinion, that could really reach the young people because somebody like me can say, I grew up in Jamaica, Queens. I understand being in the community like that, but look at where I've come. Look at how far I've gone. Look at what I've been able to achieve. And these are things that are attainable. And you don't have to be with the wrong crowds, and you don't have to get into these things. And you can deal with your emotions and deal with how you're feeling. But we have to make a conscious effort to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we just look at our own family systems, how many times, we call it the scapegoat. So how many times we have one child in the family and that child is acting out. So we go, oh, everything is out of control because of the scapegoat. That's the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
scapegoat. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of
Mm-hmm.
saying there's problems in this family system, no, what we do is that person right there is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other problem going on, but there really is. We
Right.
gotta start at the micro family system level and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
starting our systems first,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then
And,
branch out and help that child that we see needs the help.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely, definitely true. I mean, we gotta, I realize now we are living in times where the family household is a two-parent working family household, and that is a lot of responsibility on both parents, and then you got to come home from that and you're
Mhm,
exhausted physically, emotionally,
mhm,
and
mhm.
the kids are just, my grandmother used to term it, they just growing up. That's how my
Yeah.
grandma, child, that boy just
Mhm,
growing up, which meant he's not being raised properly. He's raising, or
mhm,
she's raising herself, and so these kids need our attention and their love. I mean, I mentored so many kids as a police
mhm,
officer because I saw the mom wasn't a bad mom, even if she may have kind of been drugging it up a little bit, or the father was not,
mhm,
but I saw so many bright lights with these children.
mhm,
And so
mhm,
I felt compelled to be the one to encourage them in certain ways. Plus, I was
mhm,
also on the side, a truant officer at one of the high schools. So those kids captured my heart. I was a
mhm.
mom, and they just wanted somebody to listen to them, to love them, to say, you can do this.
I was
You
getting ready to
can
say
do
it.
this.
I was
You
getting ready to
know,
say
you,
active listening, because
right,
wait, we listen, but are we hearing and processing the information? No, we're
right.
listening all day, because when a kid goes, mommy, mommy, school and the teacher
And
and
I
this and
did
that and the
this.
third,
Yeah.
and we're like, okay,
Uh-huh,
yeah, no.
uh-huh.
Are we listening? Because like
Right.
my sister said, the signs are always there. The information is
Mm-hmm.
always there. But are we actually deciphering the information we're
Mm-hmm.
receiving? We listen,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't process.
Yes,
Processing is
yes.
so important. It
Right.
is extremely important, because I couldn't do my job as a clinician if I didn't actively listen and hear what my client was telling me so I could know how
Right.
to help my client. But a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times we don't listen, whether we don't have the time to listen, or we just don't care to listen, or
Right, right,
we
right.
think we're listening. We just have to do that. Our children, especially, are crying out to us.
Well,
It
right.
might
We're
not be
losing them. Yeah.
verbally, it might be visually. They may be where do you think maladaptive behavior in children normally comes from? A lot of it is a cry for help. Teens that are
Absolutely.
acting out in school or acting out in other different spaces. Once
Yep.
again, a cry for help. But what we'll do is, once again, scapegoat it. That person is the problem. But why is that person displaying that behavior? We just, as a society, have to get more in tune to wanting to identify what is going on. And if we can identify, I don't expect everybody out there to be a professional. I don't. So now, if you can identify it, I would suggest get a paper. I was going to kind of go into that with triggers and
Okay,
different signs.
that's one I
Okay.
got that right here. That's okay, because you that's
Okay.
okay, because you're really doing great at sharing
Okay.
so much.
Okay.
Um
Because I was gonna
and
say, get a
yeah,
paper. Start writing it down. Start writing it down. If you're seeing behavior from somebody, and it doesn't matter, a teen, an adult, start writing it and jotting it down. So maybe over a 3 or 4 week span, they were isolated, they just locked themselves in a room, and then they were lashing out, and then they were maybe emotional and everything else. Because just like with doctors, medical doctors, they'll say, well, what symptoms have you been experiencing? It's the same thing when it comes to mental health. Oh, well, my son was isolated in their room all day. And when they went to school, they didn't really want to talk much. And then when they're with their friends, they kind of cut them off and don't want to be bothered. Then that at least gives you an idea of what's going on. I think we have to pay much more attention. And even if we have to jot it down, anything, but we have to start identifying and paying attention to what's going on, because then we can help people that are in mental crisis way sooner before it gets to a point where now we're dealing with all these different things.
And I often found, you can hold that there, Jared. I mean, because I am going to get into wanting to put out a few questions, because we've been really packing it in with info. And I do want to make sure that I don't want my audience thinking I'm not getting these questions answered. But I just wanted to say that the one thing I definitely know that is fact, and they're actually smart by doing this, the kids, in a way, is they're acting out because they know that is the one thing that's going to get them that attention that they want. And it doesn't even matter if there's going to be discipline behind it. That's a cry for help. You know, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this at school because I know that the principal is going to call my mom or my dad, and, you know, and then she's going to be mad. But at least I got her in my face. At least I got her asking me what's the problem. At least, you know, she is communicating with me, you know, and our job is to be the absolute best parents that we can be while those children are under our care in the home. And it's not even like that really changes. Once you're a parent, you're always a parent. But I'm just saying that's what we're doing. We're nurturing them. Jerry, can you throw some questions up there? I know we've missed quite a few. And then I'll go on to the next question, which is still in the kid category. We can help. Yeah. With we can help with we are able. Yeah, with what we're able to help with. Yeah.
And that's the thing. We can't help everybody. And so that's why I'm saying to take more of a systems approach. The main thing we could do is help within our immediate family system, right? So we can help from that aspect. And then we have organizations like myself in the community that can do more of a community level, right? That can help from that aspect. But even if people just within your immediate household, just do that within your household. Make sure that you've identified what's going on in your system. Don't just neglect what a person is saying to you as if, well, something must be wrong, they're off, they're not, you know, it's them. No, because it's something there, you know. And
Yeah.
even if you can't help them, then you can reach out to get the help. The biggest thing is active listening and seeing. We see, but we have to process what we're seeing as well. Maladaptive behavior, negative behavior by a child can normally scream out that something is going on.
This is one of my best friends here, Joy. She's saying that she was sorry to hear about your nephew. And any suggestions that we can do as a community to cure the violence?
So this is the thing. I just feel as a society, we are not paying attention to our youth. Okay, so they live in communities, they live in homes where they're not being paid attention. They're living in communities where they have access to barely no activities. And I'm not saying that every community is that way. You have some communities that have the resources, that they have community centers, mentoring programs, and everything. But what about the communities that don't, right? And if you pay attention to where the gun violence is happening all across the country, it's in a lot of those communities that lack the resources to have things available to the youth. So what do? We have to now start working within our immediate communities to try to reach these youth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect a mom to get on a corner with a bullhorn. You understand what I'm saying? So now we can start identifying, right, what community resources are there, and then start connecting the youth to those community organizations. But another thing, we have a lot of community organizations that are not actually reaching out to the youth. They're claiming they are, and I'm not knocking anybody, but we need to
Mm-hmm.
do more outreach. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why I
Mm-hmm.
said there's enough organizations that can outreach, there's enough professionals. Why can't some of us professionals put a couple of teens under our mentoring, and just mentor to them, even if it's just like a monthly Zoom, just to see and to speak and to have somebody that they can connect with. We have
Mm-hmm.
to reach out to them, because I'm gonna say it again, if we don't reach out to them, well, guess who's reaching out to them? The gangs,
Right,
the
right.
the,
There,
the negative
yeah,
individuals in the community, and they're
right,
listening to our youth. We may not
right.
be listening to them, but they are.
Right, right. And yeah, resources for all types of things, mental health and specialist counseling. Yeah, Lisa. Hey, oh yeah, women, particularly Black women, normalize suffering through pain. So true. Jared, could you put, there was a couple of messages back to back. I think a continuation of his question from John. I didn't catch John's last name. He
John's
said
name.
something I want to really I want to kind of read again. Because the parents are victims of their situation,
Mm-hmm.
therefore it's no one's fault. It's just the way it is. Now, that's where I'm a little confused, John, by that statement right there. I mean, and it's hard for me to ask you to elaborate because it may be much too much to type, but are you saying the issue with the child is no one's fault and that's just the way it is? Or I'm not understanding what you mean by that, because if that's what you mean, personally I disagree. That's all I was going to say. And it's not about making the parents fault. I mean, because we could get into that like really deep and we just don't have the time.
Yes.
But again, I have to say, as a parent, it is our responsibility to guide our children, especially at their young, impressionable age, because that's when they're really learning. That's when their minds are wide open. They've got all this information coming in, and and we just got to know how to juggle that, and not be as best as we can, not
Yes.
be a victim. I'm not going to be a victim to my kid. That's just not going to happen. That wasn't happening up in my house,
And I wanted
yeah,
to
go ahead.
piggyback off what you're saying, because we do have a lot of we do have households where we have single parent households, we have two parent
Right.
households. A
I
lot of
was a
single
single
parent
parent.
households, they may have to work. I'm a single parent right now. They may have to work.
I was too.
They, like me, going to
Mhm.
college, or even if not, just working alone removes you from the space with your kids, because we work so many hours a day. And then when we get home, we're still trying to maintain a household, and then how do we fit and navigate all that into also being able to also communicate and be in that space for our kids, you know
Mhm.
um we have to find a way to do that. And that's where we have to find a way to do that. We can't shortchange our kids in that moment, because like you said, by the age of 3, they've pretty much processed
Mhm.
so much of the information. Those are the
Mhm.
critical learning years, and then from there they're learning by example, and they're learning from their environment.
Right.
So we have to be diligent in doing that. But then not everybody even has the skill set, because a lot of these things come with having skill set,
Right.
which, how many parenting groups are there out there for us to
Mhm.
get the information? Because when you're working, you come home, you're tired. Then you have to still cook and maintain a home and laundry and everything. Now you're physically and emotionally drained, right? Not
Mhm.
saying that you can't do your job, but then now you have to be um on for your
Mhm.
kids. How
Mhm.
do you juggle
Yeah.
all of that?
Yeah. So, John,
You
I
know?
definitely agree. No, I agree with them last two statements you made. So that's definitely true.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely true. So one of the last things I want to touch on regarding children, Sharon, is do you feel that, because I do, much of much of today's the physical inactivity of children is damaging them emotionally, such as, you know, physically, and I did say emotionally, such as television, video games, social media, little kids running around with their own cell phones. I mean, it really freaks me out when before the intensity of COVID, when I would be in a restaurant and let's say nearby me is a family of 5, sometimes more, and everybody in the house, in the club, getting busy. None of them talking to each other. Even the baby in the high chair got their little play. But yes, this
Listen.
is.
Okay, so it goes to, for one thing, and I want to just shout out I see my siblings and my family and all my friends out there, but I want to
Yeah,
shout out my mom and my dad. You know, I
yeah.
was blessed to have two amazing parents that I remember growing up. They were like, y'all school, right? And then you're also gonna have to pick an extracurricular activity, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have to have something outside of just what's expected of you, right? And so what that looked like was we did dance, I did singing, and I was in a lot of different things. So I was put in spaces where I was able to just learn so much about myself and to be and to have to do hard work, because a lot of those things, it takes commitment and dedication, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not
Mm-hmm.
easy things to do. So I was
Right.
fortunate to be in that space. You know, I wasn't able, even now as a business person, I can't sit on the phone. I'd be blessed if I get to call my friends on a little break to be able to talk to them. I'm extremely busy, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
busy with purpose. You know, if we don't give and challenge our youth, right? Then how do we expect them to gain those skill sets that's necessary and needed to function out here in the community? So what are we doing? We're putting them on, they're on the phones, they're on they're YouTubing and Instagramming. And a lot of the
Right.
information there isn't even proper. So
Mm-hmm.
they're they're captivated, but they're not captivated in a way that's going to stimulate them and that's
Mm-hmm.
going to
Mm-hmm.
teach them. And yes, you can
Mm-hmm.
learn from the internet and everything else. Yes, you can get on Instagram and learn things, but do we get on Instagram to learn and to follow the people that's giving the information, or are we just
Mm-hmm.
there playing around? But once again, that comes from being taught to be that way. Starts at a home. Yeah, you could be on the
Mm-hmm.
phone. Put a cap. I would put a cap on it. You're not just going to be on your phone. You're going to be into some
Right.
sort of activity. You're going to be into doing something. And then on your free time, I really can't knock
Mm-hmm.
you because you
Mm-hmm.
also have
Mm-hmm.
to have a life. It's
Mm-hmm.
called balance. You have to balance. But if you do
Well, and it's
anything out of
mhm,
balance, then of
mhm.
course you're missing the mark, and the structure and the knowledge and everything won't be there.
Right, and it's called just taking it to the streets kind of statement. Who the mama and the daddy here? Who's raising who here?
Well,
You know,
right
kids
now
are given
social
too much.
media
Well, that's what I'm saying. You
is
know, and it's
raising
there
people.
again. We're right back to them raising themselves. But like I said, that's a whole nother segment. You know that we
And
could
you
do.
don't want them, yeah, just quick. You don't want them not to be on social media, because they have to be able to navigate within this world. So you have to be
Right.
knowledgeable in all these different things. But we're not well rounded. You know, when you go to college, they want a well rounded student. They want a student that is that has, knowledge in just all different areas: volunteerism, education, just
Yeah.
themselves, knowledge of self and everything. No,
Yeah.
we're not, we have to, that's intentional when we're raising kids, to have that balance, to have some time to themselves, but at the same time to grind, time to learn knowledge and everything. We have to educate them, we have to teach them, and we have to put them in spaces that is
Mm-hmm,
going to
mm-hmm,
invigorate
mm-hmm.
them.
Right, right.
But we
And
have to,
so
but that has
unfortunately,
to be intentional. That's
yeah.
intentional.
And unfortunately, that's why a lot of, quite a few may go, but they don't make it because they lack the discipline that it takes to be in
Mhm,
college. College is not
mhm,
grammar school and high school. You're not going to have the professor
mhm,
is going to say, here's your assignment. This is what I want you to do. And he might be, is due in 25 days. And on the
mhm,
25th day, he's going to ask for that paper or she,
mhm,
and then you're in trouble. And before you know it, you flunked out or whatever. So,
mhm.
yeah, that's good stuff. So, my last question, because we've definitely gone over, I had,
Yes,
which is, that's
sorry.
okay. No, that's fine. This has been great. And hey, Jared's got our back there. So, thanks
Yes.
to you, Jared. Lisa, I see all your comments, girl.
Mhm.
I'm loving it as well as everybody else. I can't reach out. Jonathan, thanks for joining. You might have had to sign off because I think he's got a show. But my last question I'm going to
Yes.
come back around to what we touched on earlier. And this is going to be all a part of the same thing.
Yes.
Um, about the triggers and
Yeah.
prevention and coping skills.
Hmm.
Let's end. We'll finish up
Yes.
with that.
So you said triggers, prevention, and coping skills. So perfect.
Right.
Um, I want people to understand that a lot of what brings the onset of our symptoms is our
Mm-hmm.
triggers. And it is extremely
Yeah.
important to identify what is triggering you. So, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, when I do trigger work with my clients, I ask them, first of all, what does it feel like when you're triggered?
Yeah.
Does it cause you to be anxious? Are you feeling angry and you want to lash out? Like, identify what emotions are triggered when you experience your triggers. The next thing you
Mm-hmm.
need to do is identify what is triggering you. It is
Right.
so important to know what is triggering you. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell you this much because I always ask what your top 3 triggers, and I'm putting this to everybody out there. Just now, you could think to yourself, what is your top 3 triggers? Or more than likely, it is always an individual. It's normally a person, the 3 be a person, but one is definitely normally a person. It could be an environment like work, spaces with family or friends. It could even be things. I've had
Mm-hmm.
one of my clients, she was triggered by the thought of her abuser. She was abused, and just the thought, or if she thought she
Mm.
saw somebody in public that looked like her abuser, she was
Mm-hmm.
triggered and would literally have panic attacks, and
Yeah.
you would have to take her to a hospital. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
identify your triggers. Like I said, everybody, top 3 triggers. Identify the intensity of how those trigger feelings are on a scale of 1 to 10. And if they're
Mm-hmm.
like anywhere from a 6 and up, you should really start saying to yourself, maybe I need to kind of maybe seek some help because that is kind of high. And how many times a week? If every time I see this person, this is what happens. If every time I'm in that space, I go to work and this one coworker triggers me and I'm feeling that way. So that's the one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I'm going to go into coping strategies next and then prevention. I want to list some coping strategies. First things first, I love deep breathing exercises.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to maybe do a deep breathing exercise. Be mindful when you're doing your exercises, you don't have those thoughts or you're not in that space where you were triggered. Do not think about it at all. Kind of clear your mind. Breathe, be conscious of your breathing, breathe from your diaphragm if you can, and just, even if you have to do it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes till you bring yourself down to normal levels, like I said, 1 to 4. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we like to do meditation. Meditation, if you may some music that could calm you down, taking a walk, if that can help.
Not rap, not rock.
No, not rock, not rock. You can literally go on YouTube for some sort of calming videos they have where it could calm you down. Um, you have to exercise too. Exercise is connected to decreasing symptoms and improving
Mhm.
mental health. That's excellent. Eating properly. If you're feeling like when you're triggered, you want to isolate, that's definitely not what you want to do. So you want to be mindful to be around people, be around a support system. I call it a supportive circle. Um, have that 2 or 3 individuals that you feel you can go to
Mhm.
and connect to, that can be a resource, that if you're in that space you can maybe call on a whim, because you may
Mhm.
just be feeling a little angry, you may be out of 5, and have that individual that you can maybe connect with. And whoever's in your supportive circle has to be a support system to you. Anything triggering, any individuals that are negative and that mean to cause you problems, they have to stay outside of that circle. You have to make sure you define strict boundaries on what you're letting into your space, and not letting the negativity in. You have to be very mindful of those boundaries, very defined, and keeping everything at bay that can cause you problems. Signs to look for, because prevention, I'll say prevention first. Taking the time to get to know and identify yourself. Some of us,
Mhm.
we don't really know what is happening with us until we're in that space, right? So I want you to start really paying attention to yourself, paying attention to what it looks like when you're in a trigger space, paying attention to how your low mood looks, what got you there, what got you out of there. We can do a lot to help and maintain ourselves, but now we got to get that knowledge of self on what we're experiencing and what we're going through. Also, prevention is starting to maybe get a therapist. Like, not for nothing, I think everybody, no matter who you are, should be in therapy. I think therapy is that space where you can process what you're going through. And it's definitely a preventative space because your therapist is going to help you maintain your optimal mental health and give you all the tools necessary to maintain yourself, especially in those moments where you see like the symptoms are really starting to overbear you. And you have to understand where you're just dealing with symptoms. I'm just a little angry, compared to if I'm angry all the time. If
Mhm.
every time
Mhm.
you turn around you're angry, if every time you turn around you're sad or you're in a space, that's just too much.
Mhm.
That's something that really a therapist needs to help you with.
Mhm.
That's where it's
Mhm.
not manageable. And that was what I was going to go into after the prevention, is you got to identify when you're just dealing with normal anxiety and low mood, or when now you have just severe symptoms where now you have to get the help, because without the help you will maintain that, you'll stay in that space and the symptoms will overcome you. When you've identified that the symptoms are overbearing, they're overwhelming, they're causing you not to function, making it hard for you to go to work, making it hard for you to be around family and friends, making it hard for you to function, that's when it's
Mhm.
time to seek the help of a therapist.
Mhm. 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 Amen. That was some good stuff, girl. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, again, and there is just so much great help out here. I know some people worry about, because I will say a lot of these insurance plans straight suck today.
Oh,
They
yes,
really do. They do. And they don't,
they
so
do.
many of them don't even want to pay for that type of
Mhm.
therapy, which is really sad and which can in fact, cause the person to retreat right back inward because they're thinking that my insurance isn't going to pay for it, and I definitely don't have the money out of my pocket to pay for it. Now, I do
Exactly.
believe that there are still some resources out there, and that's when you guys call those numbers, because those people can help assist you with that. You know, you tell them, well, I don't have insurance, I would really like to get some help, but I don't have that kind of money. I guarantee you they can direct you, they can open that pathway to you. The door is not
Yeah.
closed for that. So
And can I add to that? Yes. So, one thing, the insurance companies, we all have our insurances, right? And this is for people that have insurance, and then I'll talk about people that don't have. So you can first go to your insurance company, because all insurance company has their guide of mental health clinicians that they have that are in network, right? So let's say if you have GHI and you're in need of a therapist, you can go straight to your insurance. We pay insurance, that's what it's there for. And that's where we can even start first if we don't know within the community where to go. And then they will align you with a therapist that is in network. So you'll be able to start therapy. Also, if you don't have insurance, we as a social worker and as a clinician, we're bound to like sort of having to, kind of do a sliding scale. So the goal is we can't not provide services, right? So we have to always consider a sliding scale, especially for people that do not have the resources to afford it. So you reach out to a clinician and you explain to them what you're going through, and they will work with you. You understand?
Amen.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
so that's what I just want everybody to know. You can receive the help. And then you don't just have to have a therapist. You can get into a support group. There's so many different support groups out there. And especially for people that are even dealing with substance abuse issues, which we didn't really dive too much into. But if you're dealing with a substance abuse issue and mental health, that's a co-occurring disorder. And a lot of individuals that are dealing with substance abuse have a mental disorder,
Right,
right?
right, exactly.
So
And
you can have a therapist and still go to AA, you know?
yeah, and I wait, and I'll tell you, the greatest therapist you can have is free, open 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and always willing to listen. And y'all know who that
Amen.
is? Jesus.
Yes, Jesus.
Nobody, no therapist can heal you like he can and through prayer. And I am very serious about that.
Hmm.
I am. I've been a Christian 8 years, and there have
Yes.
been some things in my life that
Hmm.
he just put me on a whole different path and way of thinking.
Yes.
And I'm not gonna lie
Yes,
about that.
I pray and so one thing, um I have this holistic approach. We deal with mind, body, and soul. So we don't just provide therapy. We work on you emotionally. We work your purpose. We come from a spiritual aspect. So many times when I do my assessments, and once we get to the spirituality part, and they begin to tell me we believe in God and we pray, I incorporate that into therapy as
Hmm.
soon as I know that prayer is important, and I have prayed with my clients. I do believe that you know, we have autonomy. And so in that we have the ability to just kind of work through ourselves. We have self-determination, and we
Hmm.
need to, and that goes back to resilience that I mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
We can be very resilient if we want to be. And resilience takes some working on. It takes building up. So when I say resilience, I mean identifying your inner strengths. It's so important to identify what strengths you have. I'm a strength-based therapist
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
you can be your own resource. You have a wealth of resources within you. And that's when you have to really get in tune with yourself, identify what that is, and then take that full circle in helping
Mm-hmm.
yourself. You're the first place. You're the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
first, you're the beginning of change.
Right,
I do
right.
it every
You
day. I work
right.
on me every day.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Every
And
day.
that's
And
the
can
thing
I just
right there.
add? Mhm. Every day. No, and I just wanted to add, I did a journal book. So what we do is what I suggest to people every day. You wake up and say your daily affirmations, at least 3, right? I am worthy. I am loved. I have purpose. I am
Exactly.
going to live fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to setting 3 daily goals. And this is daily. 3 daily goals for yourself. And then taking an assessment of how you're feeling today, what that looks like, right? What that looked like. And if you were stressed out, what that looked like and what were the triggers. And then the main and most important part, self-care. We're stressed out, you guys. We are stressed out. We're dealing with a pandemic. We're dealing with um things going on in our community, from gun violence to people losing their homes, to people losing their jobs, to people fighting over whether I wear the mask, whether I don't, do I get the vaccine. That isn't even, I didn't even refer to our family systems, to our immediate family systems, right? So you have to be strengthened, self-care every single day, at least 15 minutes of self-care.
Mm-hmm.
You have to
Amen.
do it.
Amen.
You have
Got
to rejuvenate yourself.
right. Right,
Mhm.
right. Well, on that note, we're going to get ready, guys. I mean, Sharon, thanks. This was so just a plethora of, no, really information. I would first of all advise anyone who may have missed some things, you can always go back. The show will be recorded once we end it.
Mhm.
All the things regarding the signs and the self-care. And again, Sharon we have her information up regarding her
Yes,
organizations, or if you're interested in getting with her.
therapy.
So don't forget
Hmm.
about, yes, if you're interested in some private therapy, I'm sure you can email her. You can reach her on Facebook also, and you can get
Yes.
that extended information from her. And I just think that there's been so many things that have been answered here tonight that will help a whole lot of people. And so that's why I keep imploring you to share the show. Thank you so much. Jared had it up earlier.
Hmm.
There has just been so many wonderful comments and support
Hmm.
from you guys. So I really, really
Thank
appreciate
you.
that as well. And I know, Sharon, you're going to continue to just blossom. I mean, you're a bright light,
Yes,
and you
thank you.
definitely have the pulse of mental health, which is really
Thank you.
important. And if I can ever help you within your organization anyway, please don't hesitate
Yes.
to reach out to me. And I'm
Hmm.
going to actually have you back on, because like you said, I mean, there's many things that we didn't touch on, like in
Yes,
the
so
drug
much.
addictions and the alcohol addictions.
Hmm.
So I'm going to have you back on here to touch on some of that. I generally always end my show with a scripture. Thank you so much. Oh, hey, Debbie. Thank you for joining. Um, and thank everybody else for joining. Thanks, Joy
Thank you.
Joy, and all of your support as well, Sharon. And yeah,
And
she brought
I
it
just want to
tonight.
say,
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you, Bella. And I just want to say that I want to dedicate this show to my parents who instilled
Yeah.
purpose in me, and that,
Yes.
and just please pray for everything that I'm trying to do. I want to change the world for the better, and I feel that I can do it, and just pray for me, and just support my cause.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's another thing we do. Absolutely, without a doubt. And we need to be mindful to support one another. Support is not a one-way street either. And sometimes we can see that in a lot of different industries. You know, oh, I got my thing going. And not, I'm totally not saying that with you, but it made me think about that. And yes, you definitely have my support without a doubt, because I've seen you in action now, girl. So, but anyway, I just want to leave with you, as well as the audience, one of my favorite scriptures that I always delegate what I think is appropriate for the show. And it's coming from the book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 17 and 18, which says, "The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. And the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and he saves those who are crushed in their spirit." This is totally about everything that we're talking about. He is there, guys, to help you.
Yes.
So thank you. That is like a scripture mantra for your business, Sharon. And I am just so grateful to you, my sister, and thank you for all this wealth of knowledge that you have given us regarding these topics. And you have a wonderful and blessed night.
Thank you. And thank you, family and friends. I love all of you.
Amen. Have a good one. Wow. So guys, thank you so much. This definitely went over probably longer than any show I've done. And thanks, Jared, for hanging in there in the background. But again, this has really been on my spirit to do for quite some time. And I'm so glad that I did it, because we needed this. Everybody needed this. Everybody. And so remember the little things. Remember the numbers for help. Remember that it's okay to ask for help. Remember some of those techniques that that Sharon talked about, the deep breathing and meditation and pleasant and peaceful music and exercise and proper eating. Guys, all those things do help. I indulge in journaling. I'm big on journaling. She talked about morning affirmations. I actually set times in my phone for the alarm to go off, where I thank God again throughout the day after my prayer in the morning, for me to have a positive thought, a pleasant thought about something. Because one thing we pay attention to is our phones. So the alarm helps, and it gets me to call that out and speak it into existence. And so for anyone who is dealing with depression or anxiety, and even if anyone is remotely thinking about suicide, I'm rebuking that. And I just want to say to you that it ain't over until God says it's over. Okay? So you don't get to make that decision. You do not get to condemn your soul to hell. That is not the place you want to be. Why? Because Jesus loves you. He loves you. Doggone it. And you need to remember that. And so do I. That's why I'm here, to put this out to you. Everybody have a wonderful Sunday evening. And thank you so much for joining in. I love y'all. Have a good night. Bye-bye.